Hi, I'm Jenny Fish from One Big Happy Yarn Company. Welcome back to our Just Keep Twisting Socks Knit Along. If you still need supplies, check out onebighappy.com. In our last episode, we learned how to set up for the afterthought heel. We inserted lifelines with dental floss, and we got ready to finish up the leg. So in this episode, we're going to finish up this leg, cast off, and get ready to work the afterthought heel. Let's get started. Here we go. Now this is my little sample for Lila, and I've gone ahead and I've worked the leg pattern. Well, I finished up my cable, so I don't need my clicker anymore. I'll take that off now while we're doing that. Here's the back of the leg, so I've worked a couple more repeats of that. This is the second sock, so my scrap yarn now has turned to brown because I used that for this one. I want to go ahead and show you the cuff, and I want to talk a little bit about the cuff before we get going. This pattern has a 1x1 ribbing, and I want to show you on these two socks that I have over here. I have on this one 2x2 ribbing, and I did this on the two color socks, and I think it looks perfectly fine. But our mock stitch is also a 2x2, and they don't really line up. And I think it works because there's a break there. But on a one color sock, there's no break, and it just looked a little off. So I switched this cuff to a 1x1, and I really liked it. So I put that in the pattern. Okay, this is my 1x1, and this is the 2x2. Completely knitter's preference. Use whichever you prefer. But I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do the 1x1 cuff, and that's the ribbing. It's the portion at the edge of the sock that helps keep it on your leg. Let me get my yarn out here. So I've taken my row counter out because I'm done with my patterning. Now I'm just going to put in, and I'm going to measure this by length. Now I also want to show you where I'm at in this little sock for Lila using my sock check, because I'm going to need this information when I go to make my second sock. I'm going to slide this in here, and where this ends up here, I'm going to mark it with highlighter tape. This is removable, not very sticky, and I'm going to just slide it right down here so that I know when I go to make my second sock, I want to line it up to there, which is a great use for this tool as well. Okay, take that out of there, and onto our ribbing. This is 1x1, knit one, purl one, and I'm going to do this all the way around. And the length of your cuff, it's personal preference. I usually like to get at least an inch in, maybe 2, maybe 1.5, but at least an inch of ribbing, because that gives it its structure. And that's just knit one, purl one, all the way around on both needle 1 and needle 2. And then you can continue measuring, and you can even take another piece of highlighter tape and mark on here where you've finished your ribbing, so you know where to put that on the next sock as well. So okay, we're going to go ahead and finish this up, and then we're going to move on to binding off or casting off. Okay, so here is my sample, my second sock for little Lila, and I have the ribbing completed. Now I'm ready to cast off or bind off. And I want to do this in pattern because that gives it a little bit more stretchiness. This portion of your sock has to go around your entire foot, over your ankle and heel, and up to your leg. So it needs some stretchiness. If you did the 2x2 cuff, we have a video that we'll link to in the description where I show you how to bind off using the stretchy bind off for the 2x2 ribbing. Okay, so I am back to the beginning of the round, and I've measured my cuff. It is an inch. Now I am going to do a stretchy bind off in pattern, and the in pattern means that I'm going to continue the same as the before, the knit one, the purl one. So I've knit one, and then I'm going to purl one, and then I'm going to lift this stitch up and over the next stitch, just like that. So I'm binding off these stitches. I'm getting these stitches off my needle and securing my work at the same time. The next stitch I can see here is a knit stitch, so I'm going to knit that one, and then I'm going to lift this one up and over. The next one is a purl, so I'm going to purl that stitch and then lift this stitch up and over. Now I want to add in a little bit to give it that stretchiness, so I'm going to bring this bar right here up to my working needle, and then I'm going to knit into the back loop of that and take this one up and over. So essentially what I've done here is I've just created a little extra fabric in my bind off, and that gives it the stretchiness. It'll come back together because of the nature of the fabric, but when I pull it apart to put it over my foot, it'll stretch out and then go back. So I continue doing this. I add one of those extra stitches after I've bound off every 4 stitches. Find what works best for you and do testing, because you may not need yours that stretchy, or you may have a wider calf and want yours even more stretchy, so you may bind off 2 stitches, add that extra stitch and bind it off. Find out what works best for you and use that. Go all the way around binding these stitches off, and then once we're finished with that, we're going to come back and prepare for the heel portion. This is the afterthought heel area where this scrap yarn is, and I'll show you how to prep so we can start making the heel. Okay, so I've finished the bind off for the cast off. Now we're going to go back and get ready to do the heel. So here we have the scrap yarn, the dental floss on both sides of that scrap yarn. I'm going to come over here to this side. The objective here is to remove the scrap yarn and then take these live stitches and put them on our needles. So I'm going to show you how I do that. I'm just picking up this leg of this stitch and pulling the scrap yarn out. Just like this. And you don't have to worry because you have your lifeline here that's holding those active stitches. Just pick this out. And we are opening up this gap here so that we can put our heel in. Now on your sock, you'll probably have a much longer sock. It'll be out to here. I'm making these as a sample and for my little girl, so she has a little shorty sock. That's the great thing about this pattern or recipe, is that you can alter those lengths to fit what you want. So this is just the method. Just take your time here and pick out this scrap yarn. It just slides right out. And the reason why it's just sliding right out is because we knit it in there. And just knit it right into the fabric so we can pull it right out. If for some reason you do get a snag or something, you can cut this scrap yarn. It's just waste. It's no big deal. You don't have to save it. Pulling these out. It's getting a little long here. I'm just going to go ahead and clip it now because it's taken a while to pull it through those stitches. It's kind of scary when you're undoing your knitting like this, but that's why we have that lifeline in there. We can trust in that to hold those stitches. There we go. Okay, so now I've got this gap here. Looks like this, looks kind of funny, but that's what it's supposed to look like at this point. Now I'm going to go through And where I have this dental floss, I'm going to slide my needle into those stitches. This method of the afterthought heel really comes in handy when you're making striped socks, because when you're doing a short row heel going back and forth, your stripes might get a little off. So you can actually plan where you want your yarn to be when you pick up this heel. It also comes in handy if you're doing a 2-color sock like I have over there. If I wanted to make my heel another color, when I go to start knitting this, I can pick it up and knit it in another color. If these stitches get a little fussy, what you can do is just pull on, let me pull this dental floss out here. I've already got these stitches secured on my needle. So I'm going to slide this this dental floss out here. And then I can kind of tug and it'll bring that stitch up. Let's see if you can see this here. See, as I tug on this, when I tug on this, it brings that stitch up so then I can slide my needle into it. It gets a little finicky sometimes, but that's why that's there, is so I can pick up those stitches. And it starts together like this. You can go ahead and slide it over because those are secure on that needle. Oh, I split my yarn right there, but I can fix that, taking it out and doing it again. And when I say split the yarn, that's when your needle like goes through the strands of your yarn, and you don't want to do that. So if you see that you're doing that, just go ahead and pull your needle out and start again. Get that last stitch on there. I've got all of these secure now. And now I can just pull that lifeline right out. So that's the first step. I'll go ahead and continue doing that on the other side of my work. And as you notice, I'm using the same one. So I went in this side here. Now I've got this one. Now I'm just going to rotate my work upside down, and I'm going to start picking up on this side and work my way back. And then this last one, it looks like it's not a stitch. This is on the end of this side. It looks like it's not a stitch. But go ahead and pick it up. And then at this point, we want to go ahead and count everything to make sure that we have the right amount of stitches. So at this point, you want to go ahead and count and make sure that the stitches that are on your needles match the stitch count for the size of the sock that you're making. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. Okay, we are good. Now that we have all these stitches for the heel back on our needles, pat yourself on the back. The sock is almost done. Join me in the next episode as we finish up our Just Keep Twisting socks. We will work the heel, use their Kitchener stitch for a seamless graft, weave in our ends, and block to perfection. Remember, you can get the kit with the yarn and pattern at onebighappy.com. Be sure to hit the subscribe button below and click the bell to be notified every time we have a new video. Happy knitting!